like, all right, team, let's record this game. And that seemed to work pretty well. I love her. Yeah, she's like super sweet and like, I don't know. I really like characters that play the piano too, so that was like a bonus. Yeah, I don't know. I just tried to stay positive.
For me, I feel like Maki's probably one of the closest characters that's like to my personality, which actually made her harder to play. Because I play a lot of like energetic, like young boys or children or most of that kind of stuff. So playing more of a stoic character is actually a little bit harder. So it took a little more time for me to get into it. But once I kind of got into the groove, I was like, okay, I can just be really chill and just be Maki. Just have that Maki essence, yeah.
Himiko is a lazy magician girl. So I just pop an Ambien and I'm good. No, I don't do drugs. But yeah, I love playing little kids, and she has a really small, cute little kid voice. Plus, I get to be very tired most of the time, which makes it pretty chill sessions. And I actually one summer was a magician's assistant. It did not
really?
Yeah. What? It did not go well.
No.
Therefore, I am no longer.
That's why she's a voice actor.
Yeah. I accidentally released a dove into a little boy's eye.
No!
He was wearing glasses. I felt so bad, and then my magician dreams were crushed.
I'm glad I'm the ultimate child caregiver and not you.
Not me.
Well, I guess as far as my process in bringing the character to life, the parameters of Kibo, even though he is the ultimate robot, he has very sophisticated programming, so he's actually has very human kind of personality and attitude. Although it's not quite perfect, so he's still sort of figuring out the whole human relationships and dynamics and reading emotions. So sometimes he doesn't always say the right thing. So my sort of, I guess, trick to playing him was just to play him with a lot of innocence and a tinge of naivete, and just to play everything very meaningful, well-meaning, even if it doesn't always quite land how we would like it to.
Cool. No, I didn't mean it in like that way. I didn't want to you know what I meant. Okay, so second question I have is, do you run across any difficulties? I know you guys mentioned a couple right now with the whole dove thing that you just said. Difficulties in staying true to the original Japanese VO.
Well, when I saw a picture of her, I thought she was gonna be one of those like, hi, I'm like a cute little girl characters. And then I like heard her in Japanese and she was just like, no, I'm just like a girl. And I was like, oh, okay. So the first session was a little like, whoa, I didn't realize. But yeah, then after that I felt like it was pretty, Wendy Lee was directing and she did a really good job of kind of, communicating to us what the Japanese intention was and then like kind of what we wanted to do with our version. So I felt like she held my hand and then it wasn't that hard.
A lot of the times we actually didn't get to hear the Japanese VO, so it was like a lot different than, whereas if you're doing anime, you hear the previews and then you go and you kind of base your performance off that, but kind of tweak it to, more of a Western audience. But for video games, we don't get to hear the Japanese too often, other than the trial scenes. We got to hear them for the trial scenes. But that was kind of difficult because I feel like in Japanese you can say a lot more in very few words than you can in English.
And to keep time.
So yeah, a lot of times we had to talk really, really fast because they couldn't change any of the dialogue that was already written there. So that was probably the toughest thing, I think. But yeah, we had, like she said, we had Wendy kind of directing us. I said kind of, but I meant she was there. She was there directing us and helping us to figure out the characters. And then we also had the clients from NIS there, Coco and Robert, and they were great. Knew exactly what they wanted, so it was very helpful.
Cool.
Like she said, I only got to hear her voice mostly just in my very first session, and then we kind of just, decided on what our take is going to be, and then keep going. So her voice actually lands in like one of my favorite places to play, so it wasn't too difficult to stay in her voice. I guess the only part that does get difficult is when you're lazy and then you yell. You're like, how do I yell?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was hard to stay true to the Japanese performance because, and not to make too many purists who are possibly in the room mad, but I was more focused on just realizing my interpretation of the character, which possibly I extrapolated some qualities from what I would hear of the Japanese voice from time to time. But really, I was more I was more focused on bringing to life my own interpretation of that character and making it thrive in the English language.
Thank you. So I have one more question, and then we're actually going to go do a cool game with all the VAs. What challenges do you face during the recording process?
We actually had to stare at a picture like that the entire time, and that made it really difficult.
And anytime we like got a line wrong, it would like get bigger closer to us. So it was pretty scary.
Pulsating pecs.
Yeah.
Just bulging pecs. I don't know why. Yeah.
For me, I remember Wendy kept being like, okay, you're like freaking out too much. Because like when I'm in the trials, for me personally, Erica, I'm like, oh my god, this would be so scary. There's so much on the line, and I just want to be like, everyone pay attention. She was like, no, we need to like chill out a little bit. You know, Katie's a little like, okay, everyone, we'll figure it out. Don't worry. So, she did have to tell me to do that a few times, and I was like, oh man, these kids are so much more, mature than I am, I guess. I don't know. They're all just handling this murder situation so well. I think that was my biggest challenge.
Yeah. I think I kind of already touched up on it a little bit, just the trial section and having to like match the Japanese for timing for that, because that was the only time we actually had to match timing. So for Maki, she's a lot more like down to earth, and she's just kind of like talks like this and tells people to shut up a lot. But when you're trying to talk faster, it's hard to stay like you're chill, sound like you're being really chill and very stoic. So that was really difficult. And then she gets a little bit more emotional later on, because I think everybody gets a little bit emotional in Danganronpa. Those trials are like super stressful.
Very stressful.
So I was always like, am I going too much? Like, does it still sound like her? So it was a lot of like just making me not being sure if I was still kind of in the character at that point. But I guess it worked out. So.
For games like this, for like the trials, all that stuff we have to stay under, or like we can't go over the timing of the Japanese for those. So that's what she's meaning about, like we sometimes have to talk faster than we normally would during the trials, and that can get a little tricky because in Japanese they'll say something in like 2 words and then we have to say it in like 5. So it can get confusing.
I do have to chime in, sorry. Coco has mentioned to me, Coco is actually one of the translators in NS America, and she mentioned that at some points when you guys kind of like improvise or change the lines during the moments, but actually we end up when you guys improvise, we use those exact lines and change our end.
Oh, did you?
Oh, brilliant.
Oh, sorry, that's good.
That makes my life easier. Like that. Because being a fan of the games, and like I'm gonna play this one because I've played all the other ones up until now. I'm like, thank God it's gonna I'm so excited we're not gonna sound like we're talking like this all the time,
Yes.
It's
That's not really much of a question. I just thought it was interesting when you guys improvise. We actually take what you guys say and take it to heart. So it's really cool.
That's awesome.
Look, we're all learning things about the process here. Wow.
I just feel like I'm just reiterating. It's like all the same challenges. Yeah, because you and me we're very calm characters, or I'm not calm, I'm just tired all the time. So like
it's an ambient.
Yeah, so like it's I gotta stop taking the ambient. It's messing with my performance. But yeah, like when you have to speak fast but still be lazy, it doesn't sound lazy anymore. So we had to like find a middle, it was just like
it worked out.
Yeah, there's a little push and pull, but I think we came to a good place.
For me, it would probably have to be just figuring out what the hell is going on at any given point of the game, because there's so much stuff, and those of you who have played the previous games will know there's all sorts of there's complexity as far as the trials and also the plot points. So just knowing, okay, so wait, so this has happened, but then that twist, and so I found out this at this. Just trying to keep up with all that stuff, and because there's so much dialogue that we recorded on this game, we had to go at a pretty brisk pace as far as the recording. So just trying to be aware of the context and where you are in the space and time of that world. It's pretty challenging, but luckily we had a great team on this project, and
Yeah, I
with
feel like I
Rob and
had.
Coco and Wendy to just be like, yeah, okay, this is what's going on, and you feel this, and filling in all the details that we may not have always been aware of at the time.
I feel like I had to ask a lot of questions.
Oh,
yeah, because that's another thing. Like we only get our dialogue really, and then maybe some lines that are surrounding our dialogue. But other than that, we don't know like the context of the story. And sometimes because I guess because space issues and just based off what's voiced in the Japanese and what's not, I think you guys follow that pretty closely.
Yeah.
We don't get all the information, so we don't know if it's not voiced, and like hours of story could go by and we're like, what just happened? Like we're in this place now? Like I don't understand.
Yeah, we'll have one scene where everyone's friends and great, and then another scene where like a huge, everyone's dead. I don't know. And we're like, wait, what? Something's happened in between these scenes. I don't know.
Someone dies. No spoilers. There's no spoilers here. So.
Someone dies in Danganronpa.
I'm so sorry. I know. I'm sorry.
Oops.
The killing game, people get killed? No.
But I thought the harmony part of the game title meant that we were all friends.
It's a choir group. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for answering those questions. So we're actually going to go ahead and play a cool game.